Hey everyone, welcome back. Dave and History for the Ages here. So, history is not being taught. I'd love your thoughts on this. What you've experienced in colleges and high school, what state you're in, because I know it's different in different states. But yes, we are definitely seeing history not being taught as often as it used to be and being replaced by what we call various studies. And why is this problematic? I am seeing a tremendous rise in historical illiteracy where people do not know the most basic things about U.S. history, Western civilization, and really any history in general. And it's kind of concerning because then people don't understand our current world. So this is what I mean, right? I live in California. So in California, a lot of schools have social studies, and when you get to college, they have replaced many history classes, especially US history classes, with ethnic studies. This has happened a lot in the last several years. There was a state law that passed and it required all students who graduate from community college to take an ethnic studies course. There used to be a requirement you had to take kind of a U.S. history course. Yeah, U.S. history and American institutions. It might even be a poli-sci class. And that's no longer required. I had a meeting the other week, and there was a lady at another community college who said they went from teaching 20 sections of U.S. history to 5 sections of U.S. history in the last several years. Because if students are told you don't have to take the course, they're not going to take it. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with teaching courses in ethnic studies and learning about specific groups. Actually, I think you could learn a lot that way, right? But it needs to be after you've already studied the history, because the difference is a history course gives you the full narrative. It explains cause and effects. It goes in a chronological manner, which is so important, something that many people don't do. When you get it in ethnic studies, you're very narrowly focused on whichever group you're talking about. And so that in itself is an issue where I think it's creating a lot of problems where people are simply not getting the US history requirements in order to learn it. And so, I mean, unfortunately, some of this is also politically motivated, which should never be part of an educational system. And unfortunately, and I want to preface this, it's not all ethnic studies courses, but enough of them have biases in them. And you can say, well, all courses have biases. Yes, but I've seen some of the textbooks and some of the information. Some of it is very anti-Semitic bias, even. And again, I don't want to put a blanket general statement out because I do think it's important to learn the history of African Americans and other various groups in our society. I think that's vital, and it should even be part of U.S. history. If you teach U.S. history properly, you should be covering this stuff. But to replace U.S. history, it's where problematic. Then, even worse in my mind, is Western civilizations are not even being taught anymore. They are literally in some colleges not teaching Western civilizations anymore. They've replaced it with world civ. And again, when you replace Western civ with world civ, you get such a narrow view of Western civilization history. And for good and for bad, Western civilization history transformed the world in so many ways. You don't have U.S. history without Western civilization, and they're even renaming it. They don't want to even call it Western civilizations anymore, right? They want to just kind of drop the word civilizations because somehow in their weird minds, somehow the word civilization is a negative word. I don't even understand that concept, honestly. It's just so weird. So it's being ignored, it's being renamed, or it's not even being taught. I remember years ago reading an article that you could be an English major at UCLA and not take a course by Shakespeare. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you an English major and never take a course by Shakespeare? That's insane. But that's what we're seeing. A lot of this, and again, unfortunately, politically motivated. People see it as, quote, a Eurocentric class. It's about white men, so we can't teach it, which is again absurd. You don't just erase history. You don't stop teaching it. You teach the good. You teach the bad. I have a video about how we've removed so many statues and how it's kind of connected with this. It's like they're just erasing so much history because it might make people uncomfortable or whatever. You teach the whole thing, and Western civilization is the cornerstone of history. And this is another problem. I'm going to have a whole video on this. When you look at Middle Eastern history courses, one of the courses I teach, most colleges just erase the first half, more than the first half, the first few thousand years of Middle Eastern history. They just kind of pick up from the rise of Islamic period and not do the antiquity period. And I'm going to do a whole separate video on this. So, this is my little rant because it is problematic that so much history is being ignored, not taught, being replaced. So I'd love your thoughts on this. Leave some comments. I'll probably put out another video on, this whole issue of how Middle Eastern history is taught because it is one of my specialty courses, and you could look for that when it comes out. All right, everyone, have a great day.